Bercasio, and I'll be discussing life cycle of human, animals, and plants. So before we start, let us stand up, bow our head and pray. So, dear Lord and Father of all, thank you for the way in which you provide for us all. For your protection and love, we thank you. Help us to focus our hearts and minds now on what we are about to learn. Inspire us by your Holy Spirit as we listen and write. Guide us by your internal light as we discover more about the world around us. We ask all this in the name of Jesus. Amen. So, before we discuss, good afternoon everyone. Please get 1/4 sheet of paper, write your full name, date today, and signature, and that will be your attendance for today. So, what is our last discussion about? So, our last discussion is about, yes, Ivan? It's about living things reproduce. Yes, very good. So in discussing our lesson, I want you to know first what is our objective. So our objective is, at the end of this lesson, the student should be able to A. Identify the life cycle of human, animals, and plants from its cycle and stages. B. Differentiate the life cycle of human, animals, and plants by using a Venn diagram. And C. Discuss the life cycle of human, animals, and plants. So let's clear about these objectives. After listening in my discussion, you need to be able to do this. So first, let's tackle about the life cycle of plants. Insects are part of nature. Most of them are small, but they help to maintain the balanced environment. They belong to the largest group in the animal kingdom. Scientists believe that there are over 1 million kinds of insects on our planet. They can live in the coldest and the hottest place of Earth. Every insect follows different stages of development, from an egg to a fully grown organism. This process is called metamorphosis. So, let's know what is metamorphosis. So, what is metamorphosis? Metamorphosis is a biological process by which an animal physically develops after birth or hatching. It is a part of the life cycle of the most insects. A life cycle is a period involving one generation of an organism and change form eventually, but not always, compiled by change of habitat or behavior. There are two types of metamorphosis, complete and gradual. So this said that metamorphosis is a biological process which animals develop physically. So if the animals change, that is metamorphosis. It's changed physically. So let's tackle what is the two kinds or the two types of metamorphosis. So first, let's tackle the complete metamorphosis. So, complete metamorphosis, or most insects go through the 4 stages of complete metamorphosis, including the ladybug, housefly, mosquitoes, and butterfly. So the first stage is egg. A female insect lays eggs. So of course, before it develops a new animal, it needs an egg. Second is larvae. Larvae hatch from an egg but do not look adult insects. For instance, the larvae of butterflies are caterpillars. Larvae grow quickly enough to have to molt or shed their exskeletons a few times before they pupate. Sometimes those stages are grown, and larvae are called instars. So when we say molts, what does it mean? Molt is when insects gets too big for its skeleton, it sheds. Meaning if it's growing older, when it's developing, the animals shed. Reaching shell, it's nababawasan, right? And when we say exskeletons, it's their internal protection. It's like protection for their internal, external pala. External, not internal. Okay? I'm sorry for my mistake. Next is pupa. Larvae make cocoon around themselves and become busy changing into their adult forms. They do not eat during this time. This can take few days or in some cases months. So we know when the pupa, this is when a butterfly came from a pupa to become an adult, and then they become a beautiful butterfly. And during this time, they do not eat nor go out, but they just stay in their cocoon. Next is adult. After a period of time, larvae is nothing like it was, and it exits the cocoon or larval body as an adult. This life cycle starts over again. So after it develops in the cocoon, it exits on the cocoon and become a butterfly. But did you know that once the butterfly became a butterfly, it only lives for like 2 to 3 weeks or 2 to 3 days. I'm not sure, but doesn't really live long. So next is gradual metamorphosis. But before we continue in gradual metamorphosis, there are let's summarize this complete metamorphosis. So in complete metamorphosis, there are 4 stages, which are what? Which are egg, larvae, pupa, and adult. Yes, very good. So next, we go on to the gradual metamorphosis. So gradual metamorphosis is about 12% of insects, so it means not all insects go through the 3 stages of gradual metamorphosis, including the mayfly, cicada, grasshopper, hothead, louse, and cockroach. So if complete metamorphosis has 4 stages, gradual metamorphosis only have 3, and these are egg. A female insect lay eggs. Sometimes the eggs are in a group and protected by a covering or case. So unlike in the complete metamorphosis, in gradual metamorphosis, their eggs are need to be protected because I think it's really kind of dangerous. So it needs case or protection, right? So the next stage in gradual metamorphosis is nymph. The eggs hatch into nymphs. Nymphs nymphs look like small adults, usually don't have wings. They eat, grow, and change. Nymph moths their skeletons as they grow. As this occurs, they gradually begin to look more like adult. So nymphs is just like a small version of adult, but we don't call it adult because it's not fully developed. For instance, this is an example of nymph. So this is an example of gradual metamorphosis. A life cycle of the cockroach. So this is the egg. The nymph, so as you can see, the nymph it's not fully developed yet, doesn't have any wings, unlike the adult, it developed wings. So this is an example of a gradual metamorphosis who only have 3 stages. So let's continue. So the next stage is adult. Once the nymph has grown to an adult size, they stop molting. Gradually, adults are the only stage in the insect's life when it has wings. Adults primarily interest in mating. So mating is like another word for kaltos, which is, sexual intercourse, but for animals, mating. They are interested in mating. For what reason? For reproduction. Reproduction means to increase their popularity. Their population, not popularity, I'm sorry. So, next is, before that, I also want you to look I want you to look in also in complete metamorphosis. So this is a life cycle of a butterfly. This is a complete metamorphosis which has eggs, larva, pupa, and adult butterfly. So it has 4 stages, so complete metamorphosis has 4 stages and gradual metamorphosis has only 3 stages. So this is the difference. It has 4 and this one only 3. Okay, let's continue. So now that we are finished on animal life cycle, let's proceed to life cycle of humans. So let's continue on the life cycle of human. So this is really easy. Unlike to animals, it has 2 different types. But this only have 1. So, life cycle of humans. So, what's that mean? So, what's that about? Also, an additional in life cycle of animals. The life cycle of insects follows a developmental process. They grew differently compared to a higher form of animals like dogs and cats. So just like dogs and cats, I think humans are also similar But insects and dogs and cats are different because dogs doesn't undergo with becoming an egg, then become a larvae, and then pupa, and then become an adult. So dogs has different stages, so as cat, it is the same, but it is also different. Okay, let's proceed to the life cycle of human. Okay. Okay. So, the human life cycle stages. So, the first stage is birth or the start. The start of the human life cycle begins after the baby is delivered out by its mother to the world. So, this means that a baby became the start when her mother or his mother delivered him or her in the world. So, it becomes start. But do you know how baby is developed or how baby made? Let's tackle that on a new discussion. So next is infancy or dependent. Is categorized as lasting from birth through the first year of life. So most of infant babies are dependent. They only they can't walk, eat alone. They are dependent to their parents and caregivers. So next is childhood or learned habits. Takes place between ages 1 to 10. This first 2 years, the children is called a toddler. The child learns how to walk, talk, and be more self-sufficient. So in this stage, the child learns how to talk, walk, and eventually learn how to eat, and they become aware in their surroundings. In this stage. The next stage is adolescence. Cannot see this from above, but it also has adolescence or puberty. Takes place between ages 12 to 18, and it is a critical turning point because it is when puberty takes place. Boys' voice changes and girls get their periods. They begin to separate more from their parents and become more dependent. So as we grow older, we become independent, right? And as we go on the puberty stage, where the men's or for the boys, their voices change, gone deeper, and for girls, they get their periods. And for both girls and boys, they grow different hairs. In their different parts, they grow hair. You know what I mean from hairs, right? Next is also in this stage they become independent. They don't unlike for infant, they intend to be dependent on their parents, but when we hit puberty, we learn to be independent. And the last stage is adulthood. Human being fully grown. Less from age 18 throughout old age, adulthood is when human beings are fully grown and must provide entirely for themselves. So as we grow older, we become adult. This is when we finish our study, we graduate, we have love, we find our lovers, we be separated from our parents and create our own family here in adulthood. So so in summary of this discussion about human life cycle, so this is the human life cycle. Before I forgot, I actually printed some pictures for it. So this is the human life cycle stages. So the summary is this. From birth, we become infancy, childhood, adolescence, and adulthood. This is the human life cycle stages where all humans get through to the stages, but it takes time, okay? We did not grow old, we did not grow older for just a few seconds or an hour or only for days. It takes years to develop, okay? Unlike animals, it only takes a year for them to develop, right? So our next topic is life cycle of plants. Plants, like animals, live on land and in water. Plants that live on land are called terrestrial plants, and while those that live in water are called aquatic plants. They exist in different kinds and sizes. Plants are food makers and are fed by some animals. So first, let's learn what is terrestrial plant. So terrestrial plants are plants that grow on land. Some terrestrial plants are small, others are big. There are plants with big trunks, while others have soft stems. Others bear flowers, while others do not. Grow in different places. There are plants that grow directly on the soil, while others grow on rocks. Other plants cling to the fence, while the most number of plants are found in fields. So this explains that terrestrial plants are lived in soil, and some of them are, and terrestrial plant can be small and big and has big trunks and small or soft stems. And others also have and other can bear flower and while others don't. And we also find terrestrial plants in soil, mostly on soil. They can also grow in rock or cling in the fence. But most of the number of plants are found in fields. The example of this is carabao grass, where we find in fields. Next, plants living in different places are exposed to varied conditions. However, their structures are suited to particular needs. For example, forest plants tend to grow tall and sturdy. Shapes and sizes of the leaves are also important for survival. Plants like bananas produce big, broad leaves to efficiently trap more energies. So based on this, the plants are also lives in different places or has variety of places where they grow. For example, forest plants tend to grow tall and sturdy. And here, bananas has broad leaves for what? To efficiently trap energy. So banana use their broad leaves to trap energy. Next, is plants with waxy leaves help to protect themselves from dehydration as a result of too much exposure to sun. So the plants that have wavy leaves it helps them to avoid dehydration to exposure of too much what exposure of sunlight. So next is some plants have also developed structures to store water, especially in desert. So what plant that can live in desert? It is cactus, right? So cactus has the structure of water within its base, right? So cactus can live on desert. Next, Roots of the plants adapt themselves to their habitat. They differ in sizes, shapes, and shapes too. These characteristics are determined by their function. So roots are also different from its size and its shapes. It is different. And it also, the plants, other roots, also depends on their habitat. Okay? So as a summary of terrestrial plants, so terrestrial plants can live in soil, and most of them are found in fields, but they can cling in the fence, not into in the fence, and they use their big leaves to trap more energy. So next is aquatic plants. So in aquatic plants are plants that have adapted to living within aquatic environments. They are also referred to as hydrophytes. These plants require special adaptations for living submerged in water or at the water's surface. Aquatic plants can only grow in the water or in the soil that is permanently saturated with water. So this says that aquatic plants live in water and not all water. And if the soil is not in the water, it is not. So the aquatic plant won't live. So an example of an aquatic plant is this hyacinth. This is what I shown you earlier before I start this discussion. This is a hyacinth. This is an example of aquatic plant. Also, an example of aquatic plant is this. This is an example of aquatic plant. As you can see, it has water and it has its plant. So this is a pothos plant and a bamboo plant. This is an example of aquatic plant. Also, this is an example of terrestrial plant, which it is planted in the soil, unlike aquatic plants which lives in the water. So this is a terrestrial plant. I don't know what its name, but this is an example of terrestrial plant. Next, next we will learn the specialized structures of terrestrial plants. But before that, let's summarize what is aquatic plants. So aquatic plants is plants that can live in water. So, for example, the hyacinth that has long roots that can touch under the soil in the water. It is an example of an aquatic plant. So it's just easy. Terrestrial plants live in land and aquatic plants lives in water. So see the difference? And just like in metamorphosis, it has two types. Right? Metamorphosis has two types, right? Which are complete metamorphosis and gradual metamorphosis. While in plants, it has terrestrial plants and aquatic plants. So let's go on to specialized structures of terrestrial and aquatic plants. So specialized structures are important to plants in order to adapt their environment. So it is important in the plant. It is important to in their structure. Why? Because in order to adapt their environment, you cannot put this kind of plant in desert
Why? Because it will die. It doesn't have the structure to have the water. It doesn't have the built-in water. This is not a plant that is suitable in desert. So the plant that is suitable in deserts are cactus, or it is cactus. So the first is thorns and hairs are some of the specialized structures of plants. Not all plants have thorns and hair. So an example of a thorn plant, we think of what? Roses. Yes. We think about roses because roses has thorns, right? And this is also an example of a plant that has thorn. It's named of crown thorns. It is red and it has sharp thorns. So we need to be careful when we touch this. Next is the water lily leaves have thick and variant leaves, while lotus leaves are flat and broad. Water lilies have wide, flat leaves that helps distribute weight over a large area, thus helping them float. What is the similarities of these both plants? They can both float. The only difference is the sizes and the texture of their leaves. So this is an example of a water lily leaves. This is an example of water lily leaves. It's big. It's round. The big part of this is it can float, just like the lotus. But the lotus is big, but it's also big. But it has different varieties of leaves. But the main concern is they can both float in the water. Next, the hyacinths have long roots so that they can reach the soil under the water. So just like a terrestrial plant, hyacinth needs soil, but the soil is saturated under the water. So you cannot plant this. So you cannot plant hyacinth if it's not in soil and under the water. It will eventually die. Okay? So that's the specialized structures of terrestrial and aquatic plants. First is thorns and hairs. Plants that has thorns and hairs. Next, the water lilies. Plants that can float in the water or above the water. Next is hyacinth. Aquatic plants that has long roots that can reach the soil under the water. Okay, next, let's learn the life cycle of a fruit-bearing plant. So, in this, the first one is seed. The fertilized matured overview of a flowering plant containing an embryo or rudimentary plant So when we grow a plant, we first put the seed on the soil and wait it to grow, right? So it's important that if we're planting a plant, we first put the seed on the soil. Next, seed with leaves. The seed starts to sprout new leaves. So in this, the seeds grow. First, it's just a seed, and then it starts to grow leaves, or it starts to sprout. Next, seedling. Any young plant, especially one grown in a nursery for transplanting. So when we say seedling, it is the growth of the plant is not fully developed. If it's if for example, if in seed with leaves, it only has 2 leaves. In seedling, it starts to grow 5 leaves. And also, when it also said that one grown in a nursery for transplanting. If seedling can transplant a plant. First, it become a sprout. Then we get the sprout and we start to transplanting or plant it to a different place. Next, small tree. New branches and the trunk start to grow and make more leaves. So, in small tree, it starts to grow branches and trunks to grow and make more leaves. So, it starts to grow, have more trunks. Next, growing tree. The tree starts getting all of its leaves and becoming full grown. Disclaimer, not because it says full grown, it doesn't mean that it's fully grown. No, it is not. It is grown, but it doesn't have the fruits. Okay, it doesn't have the bloom of the fruits. Next is mature tree with fruit. This is the fully grown tree. When the tree grows its fruit, it is called mature tree with fruit. That contains seeds. That tree is fully grown and it's growing fruits on the leaves. So this starts when the tree starts to grow its leaves and starts to bloom its fruit. The example of this is a mango tree. It starts to grow, and then if it's the season, it starts to what? Grow fruits. And the last is pits from fruits fall to ground and become seeds. The seed starts to sprout out of the ground. So this is the last stage. So actually it's only the 6th, but I put it to 7 because starts the cycle again and again. The pits of the fruit fall. When the pits of the fruit fall, it starts to grow in the ground. And then it starts with the seed, where we put the seed on the soil. So I will show you a picture. So this is the life cycle of a fruit-bearing plant. So from a seed, it sprouts, it has become a seedling. As I said, it starts to grow more leaves, and then it becomes a small tree where it starts to grow branches and trunks, and then growing tree, and to become a mature tree with fruit that contains seed. And then the 7 is pits from fruit fall to the ground and become seed. And then we start again the cycle, just like this. So, and to summarize this, in the life cycle of plants, there are two types of there are 2 types of plants, which are terrestrial plants and aquatic plants. And in the cycle of fruit bearing is how a normal tree or a normal plant grow. But not all plants grow like this. For example, mungo. I don't know how to grow a mungo, but I know it's not like this. I know it starts to sprout, then it becomes a sibling, and then so on. So this is the summarize of the life cycle of plants. So, in the summarization of this lesson, let's start. So, in the summarization of this lesson, first we start in the life cycle of animals, which has the metamorphosis, right? So, metamorphosis has two types, which are complete metamorphosis and gradual metamorphosis. So, complete metamorphosis has four stages, which are what? Yes, Hannah. What are the four stages of complete metamorphosis? These are egg, larvae, pupa, and last, adult. Yes, very good. And in gradual metamorphosis, there are three stages that are, yes, Ivan? Yeah, very good. Egg, nymph, and adult. So, what are the examples of uh, complete metamorphosis? The life cycle of butterfly. Also, additional, the life cycle of frog, I'm sorry, is also a complete metamorphosis. But unlike in butterfly that has larvae and pupa, it has tadpole, froglet, and became an adult frog. But this is also a complete stage that has four stages. And for the butterfly, just like the butterfly, and for the gradual metamorphosis, it has three. And the life cycle of an American cockroach. This is an example of gradual metamorphosis who only have three stages that are egg, nymph, and adult. So next is the life cycle of human. So there are 5 stages. The first stage is birth, where our mother gave birth to us and we explore the world and we start to explore. Next is infancy, where we are dependent on our parents or caregivers. Next is childhood, and then eventually we become a toddler. This is where we learn to walk, walk, talk, and explore new things and learn new things. Next is adolescence or puberty. This is where our physical body, our physical appearance change, and in our different parts of the body starts to grow what? Hair. Yes, it is normal. Boys have have deeper voice, and for girls, they will have period every month, which is I also experience until now. So the next is adulthood. This is where we became independent. In our puberty stage, we also learn to be independent. But in adulthood, we learn to be more independent, where we find our partner and leave our parents and create our own family, or leave our family and then we create our own family. So in the life cycle of plants, it has two, which are terrestrial plants and aquatic plants. So terrestrial plants lived in land, and aquatic plants live in what? Water. And the life cycle of fruit-bearing plant. So in fruit-bearing plant, there are 7 stages that are seed, seed with leaves, seedling, small tree, growing tree, mature tree, with fruit that contains seeds, and the pits from fruit fall to ground and become seeds. So that ends our discussion. Do you understand our lesson today? Okay, very good. So, can you enumerate the life cycle of human, animal, and plants from the beginning to end? Yes, very good. So, what are the 2 types of metamorphosis? Very good. And last, what are the 5 stages of human life cycle? Very good. So after this discussion, I want you to answer this. As I said on the objectives, you will identify the human, animals, and life cycle. So I will give you 5 minutes to finish this. Okay, it is done now. So for your group activity, group yourself in 3 groups, then select your leader. I will give you a topic and you need to choose who will present it in the class. So, do you understand? Very good. Now you may start. So, at the end of this discussion, I want you also to answer this. So let's read the direction. Answer the following questions. So this has 5 questions. Answer each of it. I will give you 10 minutes to answer it. If you really listen to me, you will answer this easily. But if you don't, I know you. Okay, and for your assignment, so this is your assignment. Explain why we need to learn life cycle. Write your answer in a 1/4 sheet of paper. Give at least 2 to 3 sentences. And that ends our discussion. For today. I hope you learned something from me. And if you have any clarifications, questions, you can ask me now. So, do you understand? Yes? Oh, okay. Very good. So, that ends my discussion. Thank you very much and God bless. Bye-bye.